Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane. It's the morning of Friday, 17th of August 2018. And the sun is shining brightly through a diffused sky-fracked sky. And looks like there's been some pretty heavy aircraft activity. It looks like every single aircraft in the Northern Hemisphere flew over here last night. The trails are crisscrossing the skies and spreading out right across the sky. So it should be a beautiful, beautiful summer's morning, but it isn't, thanks to outrageous pollution from the air traffic here. And it's quite remarkable how some mornings the sky is so clear and others we have this horrendous sheen, making it quite a bit cooler than perhaps it should be. Anyway, if I ever thought that I was going to be able to take a break from the madness in the UK and elsewhere, of course, then that was pretty naive of me, wasn't it? So this morning's title is "Your Government Holds You in Absolute Contempt, Part 2. Continuing on from where I left off earlier in the week. And yesterday, the planning inspector announced that she had decided that the ruling by the Derbyshire County Council Planning Committee, which is a Tory-held council, and the ruling 9-1 to reject INEOS's application to establish a FRACK pad at Marsh Lane, near Eckington, in the borough of Rotherham. Well, she's decided that Derbyshire County Council don't know what they're doing, and basically she should simply override that democratic ruling and give INEOS permission to establish a well site at Marsh Lane. And obviously you don't establish a well site unless you intend to drill, and you don't drill unless you intend to frack. So this is effectively sanction to INEOS to frack at Marsh Lane. And Elizabeth Hill, of course, was appointed because she's a safe pair of hands. She pretty much does whatever it is that she's told to do by central government. And this is the absurdity of the supposed democratic process of this country. And people should by now be catching on that the democracy in the UK is a total charade. Democracy, or the charade of democracy, is only allowed to exist provided local authorities, planning committees, do exactly what they are expected to do by central government. And the moment that they don't, well, then there's a mechanism in place, currently the planning inspector, to effectively override those rulings. And of course, central government, Tory central government, actually doesn't really want to waste time with the hearings, the planning inspector hearings, establishing permitted development, whereby any of these companies could literally just pretty much set up a well site wherever they want without having to ask permission. Just like phone masts. Phone masts are effectively permitted development. And a local councillor a few days ago was saying to me, oh, no, they still have to submit an application. No, they don't. They simply have to tell you what they're intending to do. The local authority have no say in the matter whatsoever. I mean, they can try and appeal, but the likelihood is that it isn't going to get them very far. And with the government's intention to establish some 500,000 plus 5G phone masts around the country over the next 18 months, that's why they got rid of any requirement for submitting planning applications. And whilst maybe they don't anticipate 500,000 well sites across the north of England, they certainly anticipate quite a few thousand ultimately. And so knowing that this doesn't have the support of the local communities and doesn't have the support of many of the local authorities and the planning committees in those authorities, they just decided to ride roughshod. So Elizabeth Hill basically says, yeah, there might be some negative impact on the local community, but it's not sufficient to detract from the potential benefits. Well, call it a hunch, but I would suggest that Elizabeth Hill, just like Judge Mark Pelling, they don't live in areas that are licensed for unconventional gas exploitation. They are safely outside of the sacrifice zones, and the unfortunate plebs who happen to live within the sacrifice zones, well, that's just tough. Because, as is now proven beyond any shadow of doubt, corporatocracy reigns supreme in the UK. And the corporations are literally able to do whatever they want to do. And if the process is a little bit cumbersome, well, they can lobby central government to actually streamline the process. So, you know, this really is a time to either get involved, to participate, or stand back and accept the fact that you live within a corporatocracy, that you are simply a human resource for that corporatocracy, and they'll give you some slave tokens in return for you giving up your liberty, and you can keep picking up those slave tokens, providing you don't object in any way, providing you don't upset the proverbial apple cart. Because the moment you do, you're going to find those slave tokens withdrawn, and your need for as a human resource is no longer there, and you will be discarded. So this is INEOS, of course, at Marsh Lane. INEOS, owned by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who, of course, it didn't take too long for him to say, well, you know what, you can stuff the UK because your tax regime is taking way too much of my 21 billion personal fortune, so I'm going to relocate to Monaco. And, yeah, of course, Monaco is way, way south of any FRACK activity, so I'm not going to be affected. But my company, INEOS, has every intention of fracking as much as possible across the UK, not for the benefit of the residents of the UK, but purely so that my company, INEOS, can reduce its cost of sales by getting cheap feedstock, i.e. the ethane that it cracks out of the fracked gas. So this is now 2 out of 3. So a couple of months ago, the planning inspector, Stephen Roscoe, gave permission for INEOS to establish a well site at Hart Hill in the borough of Rotherham, and now Elizabeth Hill has granted permission for INEOS to establish a well site at Marsh Lane near Eckington in North Derbyshire, which of course leaves Woodsets, and no doubt, of course, INEOS will be going for 3 out of 3, which means that there is potentially 5 drilling operations right across South Yorkshire, North Nottinghamshire, South Yorkshire and North Derbyshire. And of course these well sites are all nicely in a line in the southeastern quadrant of the Bowland Shale, and that will then, in theory, give these companies the opportunity to establish whereabouts within the Bowland Shale they're going to get the biggest bang for their buck. So I know right now and really don't want to worry themselves about what's occurring, but that's exactly why these announcements are being made at this particular time, so that by the time people come back from their vacation, yeah, this will all be nicely forgotten. Well, sorry, but that isn't going to happen. And as it happens, more and more people are, of course, starting to wake up to the fact that they don't live in a democracy. They live in a corporatocracy, where unless people are subservient to the corporations, then basically, well, they're just a commodity and they're just collateral. And if their lives and their health is negatively impacted, that's just very unfortunate. Meanwhile, another issue has raged, and as I mentioned earlier, on Monday, Mark Steele in Gateshead was made the subject of a gagging order by Gateshead Metropolitan Borough Council, as Mark Steele has been flagging up the Gateshead test bed of 5G and LED streetlights that would appear to have an extreme output of blue light, which is proven to be a cause of hormone disruption. And it certainly has been attributed to massive rises in areas where these LED streetlights are posted, massive rises in breast and prostate cancer, along with, you know, other effects such as spontaneous abortion and very significant postnatal stress for the baby. Well, smart meters are a massive part of the 5G rollout, of the Internet of Things, of the absolute control and monitoring of everything and everyone in the country. Now, Ecotricity has been lauded by many within the anti-fracking community as the go-to supplier for electricity, because Dale Vince, the founder of Ecotricity, has stated categorically that Ecotricity will not use any gas or electricity that is generated from gas that is effectively an unconventional resource that comes from fracking. That's great. And in return, Dale Vince has supported many of the campaigns across the country, the anti-fracking campaigns, and provided financial support for those who find themselves having to challenge the establishment on the issue of fracking. So it's a bit of a shock to find that Ecotricity and Dale Vince are pushing smart meters. And let me quote from the Ecotricity website. As part of the government plans to bring our energy system up to date, around 53 million smart meters will be fitted in 26 million homes in Britain by the end of 2020. It's a great move. Quote from the Ecotricity website. It's a great move. Smart meters are the 21st century energy meters and will mean better control of your energy, more accurate bills, and better ways to save money. Doesn't say to save money for you, it's to save money for the provider. Now, just to put things in perspective here, Ecotricity is not a small company. It's currently, according to its last set of accounts, has a net worth of £67.59 million. It's sitting on cash of 18.85 million, which actually is down about 35% apparently on the previous year. But here's the dilemma, because I mentioned this to somebody yesterday and they said, oh, but no, you can't mention that Ecotricity are pushing smart meters, because Ecotricity have been very, very supportive of the anti-fracking community. Well, just think about that. Just think about that. Because that's like people who have taken money from Quadrilla in the Fylde saying, no, you can't criticise Quadrilla because, look, they're the sponsors of the local football club. They've put money into the local schools. And IGAS here in North Nottinghamshire, all you have to do in return is not criticise them. So just think about the ethics of what you're saying here. Don't criticise Ecotricity for pushing smart meters because they support the unconventional gas industry. Sorry, because they're giving money to those who challenge the unconventional gas industry. Was that a Freudian slip there? Perhaps. So here's the issue. Those people who are promoting Ecotricity in return for getting £60 for every customer that they push to Ecotricity. I think it's £60 if a person signs up for both gas and electricity from Ecotricity. So you need to do some serious thinking here. And if you are currently pushing people in the direction of Ecotricity, then I would suggest you have a moral responsibility investigate for yourselves the damage that smart meters are proven to be causing, the negative health impacts associated with the implementation of smart meters, and contact Ecotricity and Dale Vince and ask them what they are doing. Dale Vince is a smart guy. He is more than capable of doing his own research and coming to his own determination and realization that pushing smart meters, he might as well be pushing fracking. So come on, people, look at the big picture here. This is not a one-dimensional issue. And, you know, for many people, you still have your 2-week vacation coming up before you get back into the fray. So use that time to think about what it is that you are going to do to prevent the corporatocracy from destroying everything, for futuring them to lives of abject misery. And Dale Vince, by pushing smart meters, you are definitely part of the problem as opposed to being part of the solution. So offering support to the anti-fracking community while pushing smart meters is simply a sleight of hand. It's unacceptable. And those people within the anti-fracking community who are using Ecotricity as a source of funding, you need to seriously think about your own ethics in continuing that relationship whilst those smart meters are being pushed. Well, you have a great day, have a great weekend, and it doesn't look like I'm going to have the opportunity to enjoy any serious break from the morning live streams. There's just too much going on. But no live stream on Monday. I'm going to certainly take a day off on Monday, but I will be back with you at some time next week. Meanwhile, check out Ecotricity and their push to implement smart meters in whatever percentage of the 26 million homes they are providing utilities for. You have a great weekend. Take care.